What is EIPs? The Web3 and blockchain ecosystem is mostly open source, and all the major chains often implement ways through which the community can submit suggestions for changes in methodologies and standards. These are known as improvement proposals, and in Ethereum, they are called Ethereum Improvement Proposals or EIPs. In Bitcoin, it's called BIPs. In Solana, it's called SIMDs, which we will talk about in the upcoming videos. All EIPs are design docs that provide information to the Ethereum community about a feature and its technical implementation, a rationale. Why is this improvement needed? Or what is the motivation behind this proposal? A process. How is it implemented? If EIPs get enough traction, they can submit a request for comments, which is called ERC, that is Ethereum Request for Comments. You must note that all EIPs and ERCs are arranged chronologically. That means ERC 20, which is a token standard, was the 20th request for comment. To track the progress of any improvement proposal or any request for comments, you can visit this website, which will give you all the details of all the EIPs, or you can visit this GitHub repo so that you can stay up to date with all the status of all the EIPs and ERCs. I will also provide these links in the description below. Types of EIPs. There are mainly three types: standard track EIPs, meta EIPs, and informational EIPs. Standard track EIPs. This refers to any modifications that happen on the network protocol or any existing proposed standards or anything that affects the interoperability of application in Ethereum. This is further divided into core, networking, interface, and of course ERC. Core. This contains all improvements related to the consensus fork. For example, EIP 225 was introduced as proof of authority as a consensus protocol. Another example is EIP 3675. This was the much awaited upgrade from proof of work to proof of stake consensus mechanism. We will talk a lot more about consensus mechanisms across multiple blockchains in the upcoming videos. Networking. This includes all of the improvements related to the network protocol like Whisper and Swarm. One such example is ERC 627. This specifies the format of Whisper messages. Interface. This includes any improvements related to the language level standards. One such example is EIP 6. This was introduced to rename the suicide opcode to self-destruct. That's much better now, isn't it? Another one is EIP 1193, which is the provider JavaScript API for dApps. ERC. This defines all of the improvements related to token standards, wallet formats. Some of the popular ones are ERC 20, ERC 721, ERC 777, ERC 1155. We'll discuss all of that in just a minute. Another broad category is meta EIPs, or they are also referred as process EIPs. This refers to the guidelines, procedures, and any decision-making processes that are involved in Ethereum development. They may propose an implementation, but not necessarily to the Ethereum code base, rather to certain processes or events. One example is EIP1, which we will just cover in a few minutes. Informational EIPs. This covers all of the basic guidelines and information for the Ethereum community. It does not contain any new feature, and the users are actually free to ignore this. One such example is EIP 2228. This basically covers the naming convention of Ethereum mainnet across the entire Web3 ecosystem and what are the correct naming conventions that we must use. EIP status terms. Let's talk about the EIP process, or as I like to call it, the life cycle of an EIP. All EIPs goes through a process which ultimately decides whether this EIP is approved or not by the community. This flowchart here will help you understand how exactly the Ethereum process goes about. The first stage is idea. This is a pre-draft this is not tracked in the EIP repository, but this is exactly where the magic begins. From idea, let's dive into draft. This is the first formally tracked status of EIP within the EIP repository. This is proposed by the community and awaits approval. An EIP is merged by the EIP editor into the EIP repository when it is properly formatted. One such example is EIP 4337. It is still in the draft stage, but the community is widely using it and people have accepted it. However, we may see its acceptance soon. Once the EIP is properly formatted and it makes sense, it moves from draft to review. An EIP author marks this as ready and it awaits peer review. Last call. This is the final review window for an EIP before it moves to final. An EIP editor will assign the last call status and also put a last end date, which is the last date for review, which is typically 14 days later. During this period, if there are still any changes required, this EIP is then again moved back to review. Final. This EIP represents the state of finality and no more changes are allowed. Only certain explanations can be given, but you cannot change anything on the core level. A PR, pull request, from last call to final can only have one single change, and that is the status update, nothing else. Some of the approved token standards are ERC20, that is a smart contract that also holds tokens. We then have multi-token standards, that is ERC1155. It allows you to transfer multiple types of tokens with one single contract. One of the most popular standard is NFT, that is non-fungible token standard. It started getting popular from ERC721 and then the community went crazy about it. They created almost everything possible that you could with NFT. For example, NFT royalty standards, NFT tied to a physical asset, or even AI generated content NFT. We will talk a lot about that in the future videos. If the EIP does not get approved and it is in the status of draft or last call or review for a period of more than 6 months, then this EIP moves to stagnant. However, that is not the end of the world. Anybody, either the EIP author or the EIP editor, can bring this back to life and resurrect it to any of the status that it was previously assigned to. Or by default, it can go to draft. If the EIP author changes their mind, they can withdraw the EIP and then it moves to the state of withdrawn. This is the state of finality, and this EIP can never be resurrected using this number. However, if somebody wants to pursue this idea later on, they can raise a new EIP. Another very interesting state of an EIP is living. That means that it is continually updated and it never reaches the state of finality. One of the EIP that is in living state is EIP 1. It never reaches the state of finality and it continuously keeps getting updated. That is why it is in the living state. As you know that once anything is deployed on a blockchain, it is immutable. That means it cannot be changed ever. However, that doesn't mean that development stops. Further improvements are done through this extremely organized process of EIPs, through which the community can suggest improvements and they can use it safely as well, as it is audited carefully by the community itself. Ethereum is ever growing, and it is the reason why us developers are able to interact with blockchain in such a seamless manner, which is also very easy to understand. To learn more about Ethereum, you can visit their website or you can follow this GitHub repo, which will help you understand what are the different developments that is going on in Ethereum. If you have worked with any of the EIPs that I mentioned in the video, let me know in the comments below.